said, I'm going to call the police. And he said, okay, and I think he ran to check on Burke. And I ran downstairs and, dialed 911.
We had no choice. I mean, I would have gone mad sitting there hoping someone would call. Would have gone absolutely mad. He had to do something. And I was ready to call out the Russian Army, the National Guard, close the airport, let's cordon off the city. Those are the kinds of thoughts that were going through my head. And he had to get the police involved to do that.
But I said, send somebody over here quickly. I just couldn't get it out fast enough.
Welcome back, everyone. Before we get started, I want to send a special shout out to a couple people. Probably somebody new to the channel and somebody Of course, Susan Koch. Susan Koch is new to the channel. Thank you, Susan, for commenting, for dropping by, for even contributing monetarily to the channel. And hope you like the video and hope you like this next video. So I appreciate you so much. And of course, Eva West, doing her thing, contributing, Eve, how it is. Appreciate you, Eve, so much. Big hug, group hug. Thank you so much for both of you contributing. Hope you both enjoy this next video, of course. Thank you to everyone who contributes with ideas and things of that nature. I think Carol just gave a crazy rundown on some, that's particularly specific to some analysis that I was doing about the urine stain and stuff like that. So thank you, Carol. And thank you to everybody in the comments for kind of giving back up and giving confirmation on certain things and stuff like that. So today I want to touch on, there's an article that I was reading, and I think it's somewhat, I might call it somewhat similar to the missing innocence article that we talked about before with Anne Louise Bardock. And I like Anne's article a little bit more, but this article is not bad. It's not bad. I like it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the notes that I've taken on the article. The name of the article is called JonBenet Ramsey, How the Investigation Got Derailed and Why It Still Matters. I think it was written, I can't find the date, but I think it was, they just recently updated in November 30th of 2024. It's kind of a longer article. So we're going to kind of go through it just based on my notes. I might do it in two parts. Alan Prendergast is the author of the article. So this was a piece that he published. I think he originally published it in 2014 and updated it in light of the interest or the recent interest in the case. And it walks through some of the early hours of December 26th of 1996, the day JonBenet was reported missing, and the immediate action taken by the Ramseys, their friends, Fleet and Priscilla White, and law enforcement. Fleet and Priscilla always seem to be kind of in the midst of everything in terms of them being at the forefront of the friend group. The article details how the investigation was mishandled from the start, with missteps at the crime scene, conflicting stories, and early legal maneuvering that complicated efforts to get clear answers. It also explores how the Whites, who were initially close to the Ramseys, slowly distanced themselves and became some of the most vocal critics of how the case was managed. As we go through the article, we're going to pull out a few specific moments that stand out and talk about why they matter in the bigger picture of things. Several things that I'm thinking from this article. So, and I'm probably going to do it in two parts at least. From this article, there were a couple of things that I pulled out. Something more about the first thing that I pulled out that I thought was kind of interesting was this thing about the grand jury and Alex Hunter, and the conclusion, more so about the conclusion of the grand jury, and how, and we talked about it a little bit before, they decided not to indict, and what that means in terms of prosecutorial power today. So I pulled that out because it talks a little bit about that. And I saw it and I was like, huh. So I had to do a little bit more research on it. And then, because we talked about Alex Hunter having power on what to show the grand jury, right? And so a lot of times, as I seen a few of you mention, when we're talking about this stuff, we like to stay as close as possible to something that we can pull off of evidence, maybe something out of the transcripts or something out of a book, because what the grand jury was hearing, they were saying that there was a discrepancy in what they were hearing. They were saying we out in the world we heard so many things, but when we got into the grand jury room, we didn't hear quite as much, and that's probably because Alex Hunter was, kind of slicing it down to only things that I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here that he could, kind of touch on with evidence. I guess was his point. And so there was, and there's something else. Okay, yeah. I also am in the process of researching several things in terms of John. And those several things are, just to let you know what's on the horizon. He mentioned melatonin, and I was going through, he took some melatonin. I was going through to see, and I don't want to be, I hate to be this specific about what someone is saying, but he said melatonin, and I don't know if I believe him. So I want to go back in the records and assess if we ever found melatonin in the house. And then I want to understand a little bit more about John Ramsey in respect to the flashlight, because Burke mentioned the flashlight and possibly taking up and downstairs. He said he doesn't remember. I thought I remember John saying something about taking a flashlight upstairs, so I need to get more information on that. Lou Smith asked John something about the Subic Bay Training Center, and he asked him, did you see what does this plaque say? And John kind of danced around it a little bit. He read some things and kind of just, I wasn't satisfied with his answer. And then the last thing with John really, and Patsy, is Patsy said that they left to go to the White's house at 5:30, between 5:30 and 6. She said 5:30, 6:30. And I thought that John said 4:30. And this becomes important because if the kids haven't eaten any snack from, you know, lunchtime, or I think they ate a late breakfast, but if they hadn't eaten any snacks or anything since they had something, the pancakes or whatever, around 11, if I'm remembering that time correctly, then that is it's quite interesting, to say the least. So I want to understand more about that timeline, because you left them without anything to eat is really what you did. So, and there was something else that I want to touch on. Oh, yes. And then some research that I did pertaining to the Barbie nightgown that might come a little later. Those were the derivatives of this research. So, part one. As we mentioned, one of the first things that kind of meant something to me, it says, when Priscilla White answered the phone at her Boulder home at 6 in the morning on December 26th of 1996, she knew that something terrible had happened. Why else would anyone be calling so early? Well, just make sure. Yes. Okay. She said, why would anybody else be calling so early, the day of Christmas? But the news was worse than anything she could imagine. So that little piece right there, kind of in my notes, I said the Whites were called at, according to this, and just kind of a note of comparison, the Whites were called at 6 a.m. according to this research, but according to Vanity Fair, Ann Louise Bardock says that they were called at 5:55 a.m. It kind of means a little bit of something, because at 5:55 you would have had 15 minutes to jump out of bed, get dressed, and you would have had maybe 5 more minutes to just think and get a little bit of clarity about what's going on. Whereas if they said, I think Anne Louise Bardock said that the friends started showing up at 6:10 in the morning. Now there are some things about, and I'm kind of mad or kicking myself that pull them from I didn't pull them from the search warrants or the forensic files, because they talk about different things in the forensic files. That kind of said, it kind of talked a little bit about what time the friends and everybody started showing up, and the pastor and stuff like that. And I can't recount if they set a time or not. But anyways, the difference is key because you sort of wonder how Patsy called everyone over so quickly, because anyways, while being absolutely distraught. And to be honest, the level of distraught that Patsy is described as by Dr. Buff and Mike Bynum in the Sawyer interview does not seem to translate well over uh, the interview, or in the interview does not seem to translate well uh, over the phone via the 911 call. And she sounds perfectly fine to me, compared to somebody who may be distraught and hysterical. And I say that because you have a voice. Well, I guess we'll jump to that next, but you have a voice that is described as frantic, not necessarily distraught, but frantic, not necessarily inconsolable, but frantic. And when we think about Kim, I think it's Kim Archuleta, who was the person who took the 911 call. She's a 911 operator at the time. She took the call. She seemed to think that there was some sort of theatrics at play. And when you are an actor or an actress, you're in the arts, one of the things that, and even a model, what you're trying to do sometimes is um, you're trying to capture certain elements of human personality. Like if they tell you look sad or be sad or play sad or give me sad, then you're supposed to be able to just on a dime sort of just spit that character out, or even show that in your, like for models to just even show that in your face. And Patsy was in theater, but I'm not certain that she was able to effectively capture distraught. Maybe because she never had anything to be distraught about. And so when she's tapping into being distraught, her distraught might have been a little rusty. And so that came across as frantic more than anything. So that's one of the things I noticed, and I'm gonna kind of try to go through these. It's a lot, so I'm gonna kind of try to go through these, not fast, but deal with them in turn, and not belabor the point. And so that was one of the things I noticed. And the second thing I noticed when it says the voice on the phone, or the voice on the line, belonged to a frantic Patsy Ramsey. JonBenet has been kidnapped. She said, "Come over right now. Call the FBI." And this is a little bit different than what has been previously. This is the first time I saw this than what has been previously reported. Um, from what I know, I think it was the Vanity Fair article that said John called and said, "Please come quickly." But here we have, and by most accounts, it's going to be Patsy that called and said, apparently she said, "Call the FBI. Come over right now. Call the FBI." Now that doesn't sound like something Patsy would say. And if we're going back to the initial clip that was shown before we got started, John said something that was interesting to me. John said, "Oh, I would have called in the Russian army." And I was like, "The Russian army? Don't we got to get the U.S. Army involved yet before that?" I mean, we first got to call. John is already ready to call an international military. Now, we talk about why is this important, because when we catch John saying stuff like proper burial that was found in the ransom note, they say, "Oh, it means nothing." And then some of you have pointed out the "and hence" that was found in the ransom note. Not even looking at stuff like the prime of Miss Jean Brody. Stuff like that, it just kind of throws you off because it's like you're kind of getting very close to the idea, to the mindset behind the ransom note, to the motivation, to the flow. Earlier, when in my presentations, I talked about when we were looking and kind of comparing some of the handwriting, I said, man, Patsy's writing just really encompasses the spirit of the lettering, the flow. And it's like not everything looks similar, but Patsy's writing just encompasses the spirit of the flow of the words. And it's very nonverbal, but it might be telling because everybody has a flow to which they write when, and especially when you're writing, when you get in a flow of writing, then there your mind clicks and thinks a certain way. And when we talk about the spirit of writing and the flow of writing, your mind puts certain words together, puts certain sentences together based on how you think, how you perceive the world, how you want to communicate your point, how you've learned to communicate your point. And that spirit, that flow seemed very Patsy-esque to me. And like I said, I'm trying not to belabor this point, but anyways, my notes say, let me just get to my notes. My notes say, but Patsy Ramsey is said to have told Priscilla and well, Priscilla in this case, Priscilla, to call the FBI, and supposedly John Ramsey knows people in the FBI. So why didn't John call? You see what I'm saying? That let me finish reading this. Let me finish reading this. John knows people in the FBI, so why didn't John call people in the FBI? Patsy Ramsey hangs up before people are able to respond. This is like the second time she's done this. They don't even have a chance to think. She calls the 911 operator, says whatever she has to say, and she hangs up. She calls Priscilla in Fleet, says what she had to say, and she hangs up. She gets right off the phone, and she just runs away. Nobody has a chance to ask or question and say, what's going on? Oh my God. It's just get up and come over. Don't ask me any questions. And I kind of get that, but then I kind of don't. Let me know what's going on. Say, hey, JonBenet is missing. Something's happened. Please come over. So this call the FBI. Let me finish reading what I have. She hangs up before people get a chance to respond. This is interesting because Nicole Brown Simpson, and I had to make this comparison. Nicole Brown Simpson, if you're familiar with the O.J. Simpson case, there was this one call. Then O.J. was in the back. He had kind of broken. He just broken into Nicole's house, and he's just kind of raging around in the background, screaming and hollering and stuff like that. And in the midst of all of that, Nicole was terrified. In the midst of all of that, Nicole she stayed on the phone, even distracted, looking over her shoulder, making sure, checking on the kids, making sure everything was fine. She stayed on the phone. Patsy is calling and hanging up. Anyways, man, it just makes you think of so much. Anyways, but I do want to stay on topic. Nicole Brown Simpson stayed on the phone when OJ was raging in the background. But Patsy decided to hang up, dial others quickly, and then hang up before that person responds. Further, the request for the FBI early shows a commitment to the foreign intruder or the foreign faction who is apparently crossing state lines, which would trigger the FBI. Further, Patsy Ramsey had just hung up on the police. Why didn't she call the FBI? Why didn't she say we need the FBI? So several things that kind of stood out to me. Going back to the point to where John said, "Man, I would have called the Russian army. I would have called the U.S. I think he said the U.S., but he said the Russian army." And then in another interview, I think we've done. It was a shorter analysis. I think it was like 19 minutes or something like that. It was the shorter analysis where they were kind of doing some PR. They were doing some PR training that I kind of looked at recently. John said, and they asked him, what do we need to do? Now you guys are starting this foundation for JonBenet. What do we need to do? And John responded by saying, oh, we need to, what we need to do is we need to show our might as a nation. We shouldn't be having our kids take in, and we need to show our power as a nation. So it's when John responds, and I know in John's mind, he thinks he has it all figured out and how to respond. But this is the problem. You always need somebody else. You don't have all the answers. You always need somebody else to kind of help you along the way, to kind of help you with your blind spots. That's just the way it works. You don't have all the answers. But I think the problem, or part of John's downfall, is that he thinks that he has all of the answers. And so he responds with this, hey, we should go with this international narrative. Let's immediately, it's like John knows the process. Immediately, John is calling for the big guns. Let's call the Russian military. Let's call in the military in the U.S. We have to stand with power. Let's make laws to stop this thing. Let's call in the FBI. He's skipping straight past the police department, the first line of defense. He's skipping straight past, even without talking to the police, even without touching on the police. He's skipping straight past the police and going straight to the FBI, the U.S. military, and the Russian military. Now, I don't know why he wants to go to the Russian military. That doesn't make sense to me. Why would you want to do that? What's that? Why is that? Why is that the first thing that you want to do? That doesn't make sense. Maybe, and maybe I don't understand his time. I know he was in the Philippines, but I don't understand any more about his time. I don't understand what the connection is to the Russian military. And so anyways, my point in kind of going through all that, to kind of close this point out, is that if John knew somebody at the FBI like he claimed, why didn't John call? Why don't you call him? And secondly, Patsy, your husband knows somebody in the FBI. We can't say that the FBI wasn't top of mind because you mentioned them. Why don't you call the FBI by getting a number from John? Thirdly, why would you assume that Priscilla and Fleet have have a number for the FBI or specific contact? Fourth, you just got off the phone with the cops. Why didn't you tell them to call the FBI? Maybe it's because more talking about the FBI to certain people might draw some eyes that you don't want. Hey, I need to sound frantic, call the FBI, but I want to tell the police to call the FBI. Because if I tell the police, if I'm Patsy and I'm on the phone and I tell the police to call the FBI, then that's going to prompt me having to answer more questions. Because the 911 operator is just going to do her job. What's going on? What's happening? Who's there? Can you tell me a little bit more about the situation? We have units en route. Can you tell me a little bit more about the situation? Who wrote it? What did they say? Why did they say it? When did you find it? How did you find it? All of that. Can you tell me a little bit more about the note? We have people coming over right now, so on and so forth. All of those questions are going to be asked. And more. But what it's going to do is it's going to put you on the phone longer. It's going to make you have to talk longer to the police, and that's going to get you on record more, which apparently is something that you don't want to do. As you've shown us, you don't want to talk to the police any more than you have to without your lawyers. It's clear that it seems clear that I'll say that very well. No one has to repeat to you your Miranda rights. Anything you say and can and do, anything you do and say can and will be used against you in the court of law, so on and so forth. And Patsy and John, they lean on the fact that they have the right to remain silent. And so when Kim was like, Patsy was like, I'm remaining silent. Click. I'm not answering any questions from you. You got one response out of you. You caught me off guard with the question that you asked me. You said, what does the note say? You caught me off guard, but you won't catch me off guard again. I'm getting off the phone. And she hung up the phone. These multiple opportunities to call the FBI, and you guys call somebody else and tell them to call the FBI. Why? You guys from the very beginning are going for the big guns. And that says something to me about your behavior. You like to go for the big guns fast. That's your lifestyle. We don't build or remodel the house in sort of spurts or in what's the word I'm looking for? In like I don't want to say sections. It's not sections. And it's not levels. But in like, sort of it's like separate projects. Like tell me in the comments what I'm trying to say. But anyways, you don't do it in different sections, right? Or you don't do it in different stages. That's the word I'm looking for. You're not remodeling the house in stages. You're spending $700,000 to remodel that house when you get there just like that. Hey, don't we want to think about this? Nope. Throw the $700,000 down right now. That's what I want. Want to spend $700,000 right now? Yep. Let's do it right now. So when you go, and it's a particular pattern, and we see the same, and that's Patsy. They said the same thing about Patsy when she plans parties. She goes all out, spends, especially when she was planning Access Graphics parties, according to the Vanity Fair article with Anne Louise Bardock, Missing Innocence. She goes all out planning some of the Access Graphics parties and planning parties in general. She goes all out, no expenses spared. Whatever theme comes to mind, Patsy's going to do it. Going big. John, when he took over Access Graphics, their revenue skyrocketed fast. They went from like 16 million to like $160 million, like dang near overnight. I think the next year, if I'm correct, like within 2 years, they went from 16 million to like 160 million. Going big fast. We'll talk about that, some of the margins a little bit on that. And so what we have here is consistent language of Patsy and John saying, let's go big. And they both agree in their own way, let's go big fast. Patsy says, call the FBI. John says, let's bring in the Russian military. Let's bring in the U.S. military. For what? We don't even know where we're going. And John said, this is another thing I had a problem with John saying at the beginning of our clip. He said, I would have gone crazy sitting around. What could you do? I had to call the cops. I would have gone crazy sitting around. The note said, if I catch you talking to anyone, your daughter is going to suffer the consequences. Did you not hear me? If I catch you talking to a stray dog, if I catch you calling the cops, if I catch you deviating in any way, JonBenet, your daughter, your precious angel that you love so much, your bright star, your light of the world, she is going to suffer. And not only suffer, but suffer in the most heinous way. That wasn't enough to keep you calm? You're like, forget JonBenet. And this is what I'm saying. This is my point, and I think I may have mentioned this to some of you guys. John and Patsy did everything opposite of what the ransom note said to do. The ransom note said, don't call the cops. They called the cops. Don't talk to a stray dog. They talked to a stray dog. They're calling people, hey, come over here and come through the crime scene. Everything that the cops said not to do, they did the opposite, and they disregarded, even if this was a real ransom note, they disregarded everything that ransom note said. And according to what you're telling me, let me put it this way. If you receive a package in the mail and you don't know where it's from, and you just saw on the news, hey, be careful about packages in the mail that you don't know where they're from. It could be that one scare that we had, the anthrax, I think it was. Could be anthrax. And everybody was, oh my God, can't touch anything. People started watching what mail they opened. If somebody comes into your home and says, hey, you don't know me, I don't know you, I've been watching you, but don't do any of this. It's the first thing that you're going to want to do is do the opposite of all of that. That doesn't track logically. It seems as if you would be more cautious with the way that you go about it. But that's not what John and Patsy did. They did the opposite. And actually, if this is a real kidnapping, they actually put JonBenet in danger. They actually put JonBenet in harm's way. So if this was a real kidnapping, then you're kind of to blame. Because if you had the money, and this is what I'm saying about the linear path of thinking and logic and acting, if I have the money, I will secure the money. I will secure the money and I will turn over the money to get my daughter back. If we want to call the cops and have an investigation after I get my daughter, we will do that. But the first thing I need to do is get my daughter. I also need to figure out if any of my phones are tapped. What phones are tapped? Well, I have my cell phone up here, so that can't be tapped. Or what have you. But the first thing that you did was put JonBenet in danger. Listen to what they're doing. The first thing they did was put JonBenet in danger. What did the criminal count say? What did the indictment say about Patsy and John Ramsey? That they were good, they could have been guilty, as I guess is what the indictments were saying. They said, we think we have probable cause to believe that John and Patsy put JonBenet in a situation where there was danger. The behavior is consistent. You're telling me you had nothing to do with this, but you continue to do the things that people say that you do. You said, hey man, I didn't do any of this. Then why are you putting your daughter in danger? That does not make sense. Help me out here. And so from that, and like I said, from the very beginning, when I started looking at this investigation and I was looking at John Ramsey's business, I said it's going to end up. It's going to track. The way you do business over here, it's going to track across the spectrum. And it's going to pop up and you're going to find it. Because that's the way you act. That's the way you do business. It's hard for humans to switch up their behavior. They can't help it. To switch up your behavior, you have to be conscious about what you're doing and know that you're about to do something wrong. I'm going out here to commit a crime. And so therefore, I need to try to figure out a way to wear gloves or what have you. This criminal didn't do that. And let's just say John and Patsy's behavior did not change. We're going to go big. We're going to cut some corners. And our language, our pattern and our tone of language is going to be consistent. Sorry. I know you guys like a tangent, but I had to. That tangent was calling my name. I'm sorry. The next thing, Priscilla and her husband, Fleet White Jr., had been with John and Patsy just 10 hours earlier. The Ramseys and their 2 children had come to the White's house for Christmas dinner. 9-year-old Burke Ramsey had played Nintendo games with 7-year-old Fleet White III, while best friends JonBenet and Daphne White, both 6, had played in Daphne's room. There had been nothing remarkable about the evening, but now the Ramseys were making desperate calls for help. I note here that Burke Ramsey plays Nintendo with Fleet White III at the Christmas party. John Ramsey plays with Daphne. Patsy Ramsey and John Ramsey, I think, clarified this. And John confirms in the 1998 interview that the kids just disappeared upstairs. So when they asked, okay, the kids first got to the house, what did they do? And John said, well, they just disappeared upstairs. They went upstairs to play. I don't know what they did. So they just disappeared. So that kind of checks out that corroborates. And we know that, first of all, we know that the kids, that Burke, this makes sense because we know that Burke and possibly JonBenet, they love playing Nintendo. They love playing games. Why is that? Because Burke had just gotten a Nintendo 64, and according to the interview records, according to Patsy and John in the interview records, or really according to Patsy, I believe it was. I can't remember if it was in 1997 or 1998 that Patsy was saying, "Hey, everybody was over here, and everybody was playing Nintendo and stuff like that, and just kind of playing around." So we know that is the case. And then also when we were going through the crime scene videos on this channel, actually, and if you go kind of look at the crime scene videos on this channel, eventually um, you'll run into where we showed, and I think it was by Radar Online. If you don't want to look, there's crime scene videos by Radar Online, and well, yeah, just Radar Online when they were going through the house, and they showed when they went through JonBenet's room, there was a Nintendo Entertainment System. The original NES was on the ground, and which led me to believe that JonBenet either liked to play Nintendo or she wanted to play Nintendo. She wanted to get into it, and that's what kind of led us to start saying JonBenet loves her brother. JonBenet wants to be like her brother. She wants to be close to her brother. She wants to do everything her brother does because John called her a tomboy and she skipped off with her brother's friends. Her brother's friends are playing in his room for Christmas. And JonBenet is sitting in the doorway, according to the interviews, the interview transcripts. And so now we have JonBenet with a Nintendo Entertainment System. And so when they say this, when the article says this, they're skipping upstairs to play Nintendo games. That checks out. It makes sense. So, anyways, moving to the next thing, kind of skipping all this. And if you have time, if you want to read this article, or maybe you've already read it or something like that, but if you haven't, very interesting article. Like I said, I think Missing Innocence by Anne Louise Bardock is better just because I favor it more. I like it. But this article is not bad either. And so, anyways, Priscilla was struck by the the taunting tone of the note, which we talked about, which was addressed to Mr. Ramsey. She wondered who could hate John Ramsey that much to put him through this. She believed it had to be someone familiar with the layout of the Ramsey house, a three-story, much modified Tudor with a labyrinthine basement. Priscilla, did I get that right? Labyrinthine, whatever, however. Basement. Priscilla herself had lost her way more than once the first few times she visited. And so I have here, Priscilla also notes the taunting, or I'm sorry, the taunting tone of the note to John Ramsey. She also has, she's gotten lost the first few times she visited the home. And if you remember, and this is someone known to the Ramseys. This is somebody who's a close. This is somebody who's a close friend to the Ramseys getting lost um, in their home. So it's quite possible that whoever this person was that was supposed to have been an intruder and came in to kidnap JonBenet, they had to be someone known. Furthermore, if we take John and Patsy's own words, and that's not even the point I'm trying to make, if we take John and Patsy's own words, when they talk about who was at the pageants, and I think they mentioned, well, just family members, grandparents and parents and stuff like that. Well, then it had to be a parent. It had to be a grandparent. And even when I think one of the things that they point to a lot of times is like, hey, there was a girl from JonBenet's dance studio that got that somebody tried to break in on and tried to commit an assault against this girl. Well, do you think this could have been a parent or a grandparent from the studio? Because we got to stop all of this. Oh, it could have been somebody that we knew that was jealous of me? Were any of the, okay, well, let's go that direction. Were any of the parents or grandparents in the studio, particularly where JonBenet went, particularly jealous of John Ramsey? I mean, that's easy because all we're going to do is ask you to go to a couple more pageants, sit and see who's there and point them out. Just return and we'll follow you. Just return to these pageant practices. We will follow you. Call up some people that you know, and we will observe and ask them some questions. That's easy enough. Pretty sure you made friends with these people. Is there anybody from these pageants, because I'm sure we could sort of triangulate a little bit, who may have, been interested in JonBenet, who may have been acting a little funny? But instead, when they say that, oh, it could have been somebody that was they started focusing on everybody outside of the pageant world. I don't remember one person that they mentioned that was actually from any of the pageants. You mentioned all of your friends and said, oh, he could have been jealous of me. Oh, he could have been jealous of me. Well, is it, who is it? And that's what I'm saying. We got all these forks in the road about, oh, well, if it's somebody from the pageant world, then they have to have been invited to your home and they have to look suspicious because, I mean, look, anybody can do anything. But, you're telling me somebody at one of these pageants is essentially a criminal. Cite John Wayne Gacy. I get it. We cite John Wayne Gacy so it can happen. But I'm trying to walk through that. I'm trying to imagine that. You have somebody who is there for their daughter. Now, there are some real weird people who do hold, they're upstanding citizens to everyone else, but then they like what they like and they operate how they operate and they do what they do. They have a good side, but then they have a dark side. That's who you're looking for. You're looking for somebody with a good side and a dark side. But you're looking for somebody who has shown interest in JonBenet, and you're also looking for somebody who may have come over to your house and knew the layout of the house and had a criminal mind. Because what Priscilla is telling us is that house, I'm best friends with Patsy. Our kids go to the same school. First couple times I went to that house, it was confusing. You need somebody who has been able to case the place not only from the outside, but from the inside. Your pool is getting smaller and smaller. So we can't just say random people. It has to be very specific people. Internal is where we need to start first. Moving on. The next part, after inspecting several rooms in the basement, John Ramsey headed toward a storage room known as the wine cellar. It was a door Fleet had opened on his earlier tour, but he hadn't found a light switch and hadn't gone inside. Moving a few feet and seconds ahead of Fleet, Ramsey opened the door and snapped on the light. I noted, let me just read what I put here. John Ramsey inspects several rooms, because I might be saying the same thing. Sometimes I get excited and I'm actually saying the same thing from what I wrote. John Ramsey inspects several rooms quite fast because he found JonBenet Ramsey within 5 minutes of being downstairs in the basement. So we know whatever search he did in the other rooms was superficial. He found JonBenet Ramsey really fast. And he shouldn't have, because she should have been gone. JonBenet shouldn't even have been there. She should have been gone already. But anyways, the intruder mindset would have led John elsewhere in his search. Now, the thing that immediately comes to mind on this, besides my notes, John went down there and searched several rooms really fast. And I mean really fast. Within 5 minutes, John was carrying JonBenet. You got to understand. Think about this for 2 seconds. Linda Arndt, she was so wrong for this and that. Linda Arndt told him to go downstairs. And Fleet went along, and then some reports, John Fernie went along. 2 or 3 people tagging along. I think the affidavits or some of the forensic reports say John Fernie tagged along. But John runs downstairs, and he supposedly does. Y'all know how big that basement is. You know how dirty the basement was. Going through the basement and just looking under things, just kind of picking things up and opening the closet, and you got to know what you're looking for. Look for something out of place. John is saying, hey, man, I went down there. I didn't see anything out of place that was out of place in any other rooms. And so essentially what he did was, what you're telling me is that he first searched some of those immediate rooms. And let me pull up the map so we can see it makes sense. Okay, so here's the map. Here's the map. John has to come down. There's a bathroom right here. Inspect the bathroom really quickly. Don't see anybody in here. You come over here. Here's a little closet. I don't see anybody right here. You come through here. Here's a laundry room. I don't see anybody in here. Here's a little closet. I don't see anybody in here. You go through here in this room right here, this storage room. I don't see anybody here. But here's a closet. I don't see anybody right here. I go through here. Here's the hobby room. Here's a storage room. The next thing is, can I look into this crawl space and check and see? Because this right here would alert you and say, hey, man, wait a minute. Somebody might be in here. You know what I mean? Like, somebody might be in here, and I should probably go and check in this crawl space. But then I should go here and check here and be like, hey, man, is somebody in here? This seems pretty clean as I'm showing you right here. But if I show you this, walking down the stairs of the basement, and what we just showed you, the bathroom is right here, as we just showed. So we're walking down the stairs this way, and the bathroom is right here. That's in front of us. And so obviously to the right is going to be the boiler room and the hobby room, is kind of what you're seeing here. So if I turn to my right, there's already junk on the ground. There's already junk on the ground. And Lou Smith asked John about this. What's the first thing you see? And John really didn't do a good job on that. So first, obviously, looking forward, you're going to see, you're seeing the wine cellar, the entry to the wine cellar. It's straightforward. And then on the left right here, kind of going this way, is the boiler room back behind this little wall right here. So you got some stuff, but it's messy. I mean, anybody could be in here, standing anywhere, doing anything. Right? And that's what's weird. We have so much junk. There's so much mess down here. Anybody could be doing anything. So continuing to travel through the, and this is Radar Online, continuing to travel, all this junk down here. And I'm not here to judge the Ramseys for having a dirty household. I just cleaned my house, so I can't hate on you for that. But look at all this stuff. And that's what I was asking. Where exactly would you have put JonBenet? And so you come in here, and the closet right here to the right, because right here, from right now, what we're looking at this little area. This little space right here is what we're looking at. But we're about to pass. This is the door that you're seeing heading into this laundry room. So on the right, we pass this little closet where John would have opened the door. He would have checked, which they're doing. Thank you so much for doing that. We have coats and clothes and, quite honestly, for something to, it looks like a pair of boots. It looks like somebody's boots. But anyways, it almost looks like the Cowboy Sweetheart boots. But anyways. checks inside. Somebody could be in there hiding or whatever. So we got to check that, and so far we're about a minute and 57 seconds in. And so we see something from Nordstrom. We're kind of walking through this basement. We're 2 minutes in, kind of exploring. And you see how slow we're walking because we're being cautious, right? I'm looking around. I'm checking to see anything, if anything looks, because we're not just checking for a person, we're checking to see if anything is out of place. So I'm checking and I'm looking under things. We can kind of see all of our decorations. There's like a little cubby hole right here somebody could be kind of hiding in. You know what I mean? Got the sink here. Some stuff, some gift bags and whatnot. And so this right here, these are the heavy duty washer and dryer that I think Linda Hoffman used to um, uh, 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 wash the comforters and stuff like that, wash the bulky things. So now we're going from the laundry room right here. We're going to take a right. Yeah, it's Nordstrom. And we see it's like a little fireplace tool. But I think right here to my right, and I was confused about this before, but I think right here to my right is actually a shower, is what that is. I think that's actually a shower because I heard them mention people would take showers down there or something like that. And I was like, what? Where? And I think that's what that is. And so you have the storage room back here. And so to kind of keep us on track, you have the laundry room where we just were. You have this, which I think is a shower. And then you have the storage room is what we're facing now. You got to go in here and you have to, so you have this kind of little shower thing. I'm not sure if he's going to open it or not. But you would, yes, you would open this just to kind of see because somebody could be hiding in there. Good thing that you have fleet and you have backup. So we can know if somebody's following us. And so now we're looking in this room and you got to step in here. There's a closet right here. I got to step all the way through here. Okay. And we see a lot of mess. So again, this was one of the, when we talked before, this was one of the rooms in which you said, I mean, maybe this is one of the furthest rooms. If we look, this is one of the furthest rooms away. I mean, this room is out in the open. I mean, this room is kind of out in the open. You would probably want to go here, or you would probably want to go here or go here if you're going to do something or commit some sort of heinous act that we see with JonBenet. Look how dirty this room is. Where? So we're looking around. I mean, you can't even see the floor. It's just junk. And that's what I mean. So if we're thinking about somebody assaulting JonBenet, then this room has to be counted out because can't do anything with this. But guess what? Pay attention to the time. The time is at 4:30. The time is at 4:30. We are almost at 5 minutes. Let's say we walked down here at 1 p.m. We are already at 5 minutes and we're just now through the first part of this. Now we're going into the train room. And this is the second place, or I guess let's call it the second place, or the second stage of the investigation with Fleet and John Ramsey. Look, I'm looking, there goes the wood shards and stuff like that. I'm whittling down and officer and a gentleman poster. Look, we're at 5 minutes and 13 seconds. I haven't even looked at the window. We're going to be looking. Okay, there could be somebody in here in this closet. So I got to look. Being thorough. I have Fleet White with me. I have John Fernie with me. I'm being thorough. I'm checking everything out. And this is how a normal person would be walking. This is why I say, when you tell me somebody moved 5 minutes Look how dirty that is. When you tell me somebody moved 5 minutes through this basement and then found JonBenet in 5 minutes, yeah, okay. So I'm looking through another closet. And just to give an update, this is the closet that he's looking in. I'm sorry. No, I'm wrong. We're here now. So we just came out of here and we looked in this closet. Officer and the gentleman posters right here. We're looking in this closet now, and we're heading to this storage room, which was the second stage of John's investigation. Unfinished closet. Now we're going to turn to our left, and we're going to go toward the window. Here we have the window, and we're standing there and looking at it. Now, here is the thing about this. We stand here and we talk amongst ourselves and we say, and Fleet says, "Hey, take a look at that, John." And then John responds, "Yeah, I broke that last summer when I was trying to break in." We're at 6 minutes and 17 seconds. Why is this important? This is important because you can't change the timeline on this. I sent you down at 1 o'clock and you returned in 5 minutes. That means you didn't look in no rooms. That means you went in and out. That means you were looking for something. Because you said that you got down and kind of messed with the glass on the ground and this and that and all that. Look, this video is about, I think it's about 10 minutes. And I'm gonna close it off on this. But this video, and I'll have to get to the rest of this, man. I didn't even get to 1, 2. We're looking out the window. Look, man, we're looking out the window trying to figure out if anybody went in and out. This is a thorough inspection of downstairs. 17 minutes and 15 seconds. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 more pages. I didn't even get through. I got through 1 page. I got through 1.5 pages. But anyways, so we're checking this. We're at past 7:30. And I'm letting it roll. We stopped it a couple times. So it's been almost probably like 8 or 9 minutes on this. I'm just trying to check some timelines because what you tell me, that's why when I said earlier, I want to go back and see if there's any mention or finding of melatonin in the house, because I got reason to distrust you. Because you told me melatonin, and this is the kind of stuff that makes me say, can I even trust anything you're saying? And people are like, "Oh man, you're being so anal about it. Oh, you don't have to do that." Look, when you do stuff like this, and I'm saying, man, we're at 8 minutes and 30 seconds. And there's, if you saw, look what's happening. Any logical person, if you see some crazy stuff going on, it's like, "Hey man, I came in and I saw this window open. I think the criminal just escaped." Look what the cameraman is doing. They are looking at everything. This is what John was supposed to be doing. They would have gone and looked through the window and just kind of looked out and looked up and looked all around. John didn't do any of that. I know what he told us, but John didn't do any of that. I'm looking at the suitcase. I would have stopped and opened the suitcase. This is what a normal person would have done. I'm at 9 minutes and 17 seconds. JonBenet is already dang near 5 minutes ago. JonBenet is upstairs. And John has started screaming. John is already around the corner. I'm just now making my way back. And so they shifted upstairs, but I am just now it's going to take me another 1 to 2 minutes. And this is at 9:38. It's going to take me another 2 minutes to turn that corner. I'm going to do the same process, and I'm going to look around. I'm going to do the same process of walking very slowly, going through here and looking around here. That's probably going to take me another 1 to 2 minutes. And then I'm going to look in here. But the thing about this room is when you open this door, I don't care if you have a light or not. I believe that you can see everything in this room immediately. If there was a white blanket on the ground in this room, you would have seen it immediately. And I think that's what threw Fleet White off. And he didn't want to say anything, but I think it threw him off. Because according to the article here that we're reading, Fleet, it was a door Fleet opened before, hadn't found a light switch. Moving a few feet and seconds ahead of Fleet, Ramsey opened the door and snapped the light on. So John was moving quickly in front of Fleet. He was moving quickly in front of Fleet to try to get to a destination to try to get things handled so that he can boom and act surprised. Or he was surprised. That's what John would tell us. He was genuinely surprised. That's funny. Man, I did too much. I did too much. So that's part one. I'll leave it there. Next, we're going to pick up with the switch from internal to from external to internal. When they switch from the homicide part. When it went from a kidnapping case to a homicide case is what we're going to pick up on next. I gotta go. I got to meet a friend for lunch. Already promised. I'm a little late. I need to get dressed. But thank you so much again for all the gifts, for everybody who contributed, Susan and Eve, and everybody who is in the comments, like, share, subscribe, for all of those nationally and internationally coming and still kind of keeping up with this case and kind of joining me in this community and in this fight for justice for JonBenet is really what it's been. I enjoy your comments and all of your theories and your perspectives and kind of reading through all those things and whatnot. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your encouragement. I really appreciate everything. Thank you for liking and sharing and subscribing. And until next time, take care of yourself. Don't be too stressed. Got to calm down. See you on the next run. Take it easy.